challenge from Jerry was to turn a couple of tops for the Ronald McDonald House tops that we have a bucket for in the back. You guys did an excellent job. You got a lot of color, you got a lot of variety, but you've got a lot of tops there. I think on a quick count I came up with 222 tops that are over there. So give yourselves a round of applause because that's awesome. The kids are going to enjoy those. They'll get a lot of enjoyment, and I'm sure you enjoyed turning them because they're a fun little project. So without further ado, let me start. Effie, do you got some up there? No? All right. Who's the first person to show us off their tops?
I managed to do a couple of tops before this meeting. I did 3 of them. Nothing special, but they are tops. So, thank you.
So, this is probably the least efficient way to make tops, but I like the finish and the color, and I made them out of a solid piece. So, I'm better with that off.
Maybe that's got to be turned like that. Maybe.
Possibly.
Is that possible, Jack? There we go.
Test.
See, I think it was hitting this
Okay.
other thing.
Well, I can hit the back of the room just with my voice. So this is Cadillac's Mexican ebony.
Test, test, test.
Got some tops there. One of them even is just made out of cherry with no texturing and no coloring.
I made 3 blanks. These 2 were all maple, and they turned fine, and the other one was maple for the horizontal and birch for the vertical, and the birch split, so I have to drill that out and replace it with maple.
So I made a number of tops this month. These 3 actually spin without wobbling too much, so I brought them.
At the Urban Woodsman, Larry Dice did a thing with iridescent paints. So I tried something. I had some left over from when I did the Cosmic Cloud, and so these are different. The one I like the best is this one here, the purple one, with gold, and it turned out really well. That was real gold? No, gold iridescent paint.
Well, I tried one of Anthony's tippy top, and it still didn't tip over. And then a couple other, and I did one with a little bit of texture and black marker.
Terrible thing about tops is once you start, you can't stop. I couldn't figure out what size they wanted, so I just kept on making them in all different sizes. And I made some in pink, so I figured there's got to be some girls over there.
My granddaughters love to paint and bedazzle everything, so these are just plain without a finish. Did put some beading on it so they can finish it the way they want.
Well, I have a lot of walnut at home, and I dug some dowels out of the pile. And so I made them out of walnut. They look cool when they're not spinning.
Now, I watched this thing on television. It's called Basketball. And they were talking stuff to each other. They called it talking trash. And so I decided to make some trash tops. And I got them out of the trash and turned them. And other than that, they're just buffed.
I called him the last time or sent him a text and said, "Are you mad at me?" Did you see the picture he put into me last time? I said, "Next time, just leave it out." It was awful. I got a new Forstner bit, so I had to play with it. So I've got, it's my cheese, Swiss cheese top, and then just another little walnut one. That's it.
I have a right-hand top and a left-hand top. The left-hand top bleeds, not from me, but from the markers. So if you really want to learn how to make them bleed, come on over, I'll show you. The right-hand top didn't bleed. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a little obsessed with doing tops. Sorry about that. So all these were from cutoffs. So that was the whole thing. It was like once you cut them and get them set and glue them up, it's like, well, I got to put all these on the lathe. So, you know, as I got, it was fun to experiment on things. But I've been working on doing some segmenting. So I thought this was kind of unique to have a segmented top. And did several of those if you looked in here. And then I was in the shop and I did like a captive ring, and Anthony said, "Well, that's really cool, but can you do something like this?" So I had to go home and do, I don't know what they call this, the Saturn bull ring or whatever, something like that. So I had fun. Saturn top.
The only time my mouth isn't open in a picture, I guarantee you. I do the same thing Jack does. I love to take my cutoffs because they're already they're already round and they're disc shaped, and I drill a hole in the middle of them and throw a dowel. Thank you. The dowel stick through them and glue them up and go. I did go by the Outdoorsman Woodsman program and saw Larry do a platter in his Illusion, and so I tried just with acrylic paints and some gold fleck acrylic paint to kind of mimic that same thing. And then one thing that I did different on this was Ellie Alvacera did a little offset on a lid of a box one time, and so I did offset this so that I could get strikes that didn't go all the way around on it, and that was kind of fun. But other than that, it's just fun to turn tops.
Okay, I remembered this morning that I needed to turn a couple of tops. And I made a KU top for later this week, yeah, tournament time, and a Chiefs top, and they work. They work well. I kind of copied them off of yours, and I'm surprised how well they work. Well, that's still going. Yeah. Okay, time's up.
As impressive as the tops themselves is the how many people we got to come and participate. The participation in this challenge is better than several of the months I've seen. I love that. I think it's important to challenge yourself and to do the challenge projects just to grow your techniques, practice things that you haven't done before, and you might get ideas on something for gifts and stuff like that to come out of a lot of those projects too. So thanks everybody. If you had tops up there that you didn't intend to donate, stop Chuck now. But basically, I looked at all of these tops as going into the bowl for the Ronald McDonald House. So great job. Some of you guys went way overboard, but we all appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the show and tell now. We're rolling right along pretty good. So I do the drawing. Oh, I'm sorry. We did not do the drawing. Thank you. I'm new at this. I was appointed, not elected. Let's see, Sean.
As long as it's not Dick Woodhouse, I don't care.
Our challenge winner is not Dick Woodhouse. Yeah. If we have a not Dick, no, it's number is the last three digits 956. 95. Tony got one of the Kevin Neely hollowing tools. Put a handle on that thing, and you'll be it's unbelievable how well those things work.
I have one with a handle.
Okay, now you got a backup. Okay. 4. Okay. Anthony's patiently waiting for show and tell, so we're going to get that thing rolling and started. Go, Anthony.
You have to have a launcher with it. This is the biggest one I've gotten to succeed. Yeah. I've gotten about half of them to work now. I've discovered that making them large is more difficult than small. Light wood works better than heavy wood.
Finally, I made something shiny. It's just a regular bowl out of the catalpa. Piece of oak, put some funky little rings in there, burn them in. I used a piece of wood to burn these in. And then the top of the top is Paduke. Figured I'd give this to my granddaughter. She can put hairpins in here. She can put, I don't know, the hair rubber band things around here, earrings, rings, right in the center. Sanded it down to 400, used poly, a spray-on poly. Then sanded that at 600, and then used, not Yorkshire grit, but the other stuff. Nope, it doesn't leave fingerprints. Renaissance wax, yes, over the surface. And that's my story.
Well, this piece, originally the wood was used for something else, and I repurposed it, glued it together with epoxy with some charcoal powder to give it some black, which is the black lines in this. And I had a square, and I ran it through a saw blade with a dado blade on it, so I had nice crisp edges here. Ran it about 2/3 of the way through, filled them in with epoxy, turned it, did my usual epoxy with polyurethane finish on the outside, and there it is.
Okay. Let's show up on the. There's a total of 8 of these. This is what you do when you have hand surgery and can't turn for 3 months. You glue all your little scraps back together again. And I started turning this week for the first time in 3 months. This was a bunch of 1-inch square blocks that I had left over from another project 20 years ago. Situation. There's 32 blocks in here of 13 different woods. And then these are just a combination of monkey pod and mango from Hawaii. One is strips and one was squares. So got those all glued up while I was one hand in a cast, and now I'm back to turning. So they're just turned, they're not finished at all yet. Yeah.
Well, my name's David Roth. It's been a while since I've been back here. Good shot. I'm starting to experiment with some Illumilite blanks, and I'm trying to do mother of pearl. And if you look at this one here, it's really white, and there's not much color to it. But if you drill the hole for a pin blank, and you paint the inside of it black, then the colors will start to appear. Did the same thing. That was too dark for me here. It looks like a smoky oyster mother of pearl. So then what I did is I took sky blue and painted the inside of it sky blue, and the colors really turned out nice and more uniformity. Then I had an idea. What happens if I make a blank and I start pouring the dark colors into the blank itself? So those should make those pearlescents come out more. Also, there is a demo at Woodcraft on March 21st at 1 o'clock. We'll be doing a flip cup pour and a 3-color swirl pour, if you want to see that. So it's at 1 o'clock on the 21st, and they'll have a flyer out there, and I got 2 flyers here if you want to take a snapshot with your phone. Are there any questions on the resin? No? All right. Thank you.
We have a brief intermission for a little promotion of this item or the contributing for the auction. Briefly, what led to this is this. And this starts its life as a 4x6 by a 9-inch piece of wood with a 10-degree cut off on one end. Okay, so just got a brick out here. So the first task to do is to create a spheroid object in the center. That is, you're setting it offset so that the one end of the board has on center about a 1/4 inch, or not a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in. So the board is pitched so that it is slanted like this when the center is on this object here. So that's the portion of the board that's inclined. Okay, so your object, what you have to do is to turn a sphere profile to cut that into the block, to the brick, and that will get you started with your base round, so that ultimately, this is now on centers. This is center to center turning. And what you want to do is create a place for your chuck on the base, right? So you're going to, somewhere in time, you're going to grab this end, and then you have to do other things. So the bottom line is, while you're looking at this, so these were done by just profile, you know, I want to call it art turning, you know, just get it to be a perfect sphere. And then the reason to get it to be spherical is at some point in time, you want to remove the middle. Well, to get the grooves to intersect, you really need to have the same wall thickness. So you get to constantly think about, what am I cutting away and what do I leave? So the bottom line after all of this effort is you're ultimately going to have to hold this in 2 planes. So I've got to be able to rotate it like this, and I cheat and use a vacuum chuck. And it happens to fit my vacuum chuck, and if you're really, really lucky, you don't break vacuum, electricity doesn't go off, other things happen and it goes, you know, sailing. But that allows you then to turn out the center part. Then after you've got the center part out, because this is no grooves on the outside yet, and so now you're grooving the inside of this after you've got the wall thickness, so you know how deep to cut, so that when you take the outer stripes off, you will intersect the holes. Otherwise, you're going to be there with a file and an X-Acto knife for several days. You don't want to do that. So that's the bottom line on it. And after you have turned the center part, got the grooves where you want them, then you rechuck this now in your chuck, so you're holding it again on centers, with this still being on the live center, and you cut off the center sphere, and you look at it and you see, gee, there are a lot of holes in there, and that's really good. So the other thing I did was took it over to Midwest Engraving and had them put my title on the bottom of this for Time Catcher. And you know the story about that. This soaks up all the time you got to give it. So having done that for 2 tries earlier, I decided it was worth $50 a parts to create a sphere turner. And so there's 2 ball bearings in the center here. This has to be centered in your lathe bed so that this bolt hole is exactly centered under your drive line of the lathe. So that's a good place to start. So you make the base that fits your lathe. And then these are just 1.5 by 1 inch thick aluminum board, so that you can adjust the size of the sphere you need. And then about 2 days later, I figured out how to do the drive mechanism up here for this cutter. This cutter is a 1/2 inch bolt steel, tool steel, with a 1/2 round cutter. It slides inside a 3/4 inch shaft to another tool steel part. And then on the back side of this tool steel part is a hole drilled through the very end of it to create a 1/4 inch opening with a round space that you can slide a ball bearing in, that you have silver soldered to the end of the 3/8 by 24 pitch. And while you're at it, you might as well press the steel sleeve in here so that it just, you know, will last a while. So that's my story, but I hope you enjoy this.
I had told Effie that I wanted to make a balloon on this project, and so if you can envision when it came up to here, it was going to be, you know, like how you tie the balloon and you got the little end right there. That was the game plan, but I found out I couldn't really carve epoxy. It just doesn't really carve with my high-speed carvers. So basically it's just a hollow form, but there again, when you turn it through the bottom, and you get it really nice and light, and then you have to glue the African blackwood on the bottom and with a chuck and flip it around. And then in this case, I did pour epoxy, and I poured it in a PVC pipe. So it was really about that long, and I really wanted a long neck. Well, it broke off, so I basically had to use just a short. That was a design change. So anyway, that's what that piece is. And the other nice thing that I'm really starting to enjoy it, and that is the 3408. Kevin, is that right? Parfex. That stuff's great. That's a Parfex finish. Now this is another epoxy pine cone platters. My neighbor had just itty bitty pine cones. So I glued them in. Basically, this is Norfolk Island pine, and I had that leftover piece when I turned to plumeria, and then 2 colors of epoxy, and then this was a leftover piece that you'd help me with, Kevin. 12 segment Brazilian rosewood. Went over to your house, and this was a little leftover piece that I had, and so I glued that on there just to give it a little bit more of an accent. And then I had to also epoxy on a piece of African blackwood just to give it lift. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Pardon me? This one? Oh, this is epoxy. And it's just, there again, there's probably 2 different colors of that, brown and probably a goldish color. African blackwood, and this is just cherry. Just a real colorful or nice cherry.
This is a piece of spalted oak that I turned back in 2018, so it's been sitting around for a while, and I finally got around to finishing it. It had such a big opening in it, I'm kind of stuck in a rut on this aspen type look on the inside, and but it was a perfect piece to do that for. So.
So I brought this into the shop to start working on it, or in the interim working part of it. And so I was asked to do a demo next meeting. So this is the shape we're going to try to accomplish next meeting. And I'll get to show you how to do it. It's kind of fun. It's interesting. It's a little bit different if you've not turned something of this shape. So it's rounded on sides all the way down here and then hollowed out, but you keep the square top. So, and I think you could do some finish work on the top if you wanted, either carving or coloring. That would be real interesting too.
You turn 2 of those at the same time?
Well, do you want to wait for the demo, or do you want me to tell you everything? Yes, you put 2 pieces of wood together, and there's a lot of different ways you can put them together, but you turn them simultaneously and then create your tenon or recess and hollow it out. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I was busy. I turned this platter, which is 15 and a half inches, which at the time was the biggest one that I had turned. This one was not, well, they're both about the same size. And I've got another one that I'm working on that's 19 and a half inches that's not quite ready. That was so big, I decided to make it into a Lazy Susan. But it's not finished yet, so I'll bring that maybe next month. So I did those platters, and then this is an elm bowl that I turned from Tony's tree. Where'd Tony go? Anyway, when he sent out that message saying that he had some elm, this came from that tree. So I did that. And then this was another first. This was in on the shelves in the back, and somebody didn't want it. It was already round. So I took it home and started filling it with an acrylic called Art and Glow that I tinted with blue or teal India ink. I tell you, I kept pouring it in. I come back the next day and it was gone. Pour or it came back like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know where it was going, because it's got to be in here, because it wasn't, when I hollowed it out, it was pretty much all wood. But if you look at it, you can see the light comes through here, and then it came and went down this part and showed up in here, and it was a real challenge, but it was neat. So that's it.
This is a little manzanita box that I turned that had, okay, I needed something to put like in the armrest of my truck to put changing stuff in, you know, so we're digging around the bottom of it when you go to a, you know, toll booth or something. Anyway, I thought, okay, I did this. And it's real, manzanita is real hard wood. It's, and really gnarly. This is kind of interesting because you can see light through this big crack here, and then in the top, the pith was right through here, and you can see right through that. This is kind of neat. The top doesn't look like it's finished because my daughter came out and said, "Dad, that looks like, you know, a piece of anatomy or something." And so I said, okay, so I just left it. So that's my story.
Up at the wood show in back of our booth, there was these guys that had stainless steel stoppers, and they also had these different kind of honey dippers and stuff like that. So I turned some jars with that, and my daughter likes them because you can wash them without them just instantly destroying. And then I had somebody come up to me and they said they had honey, but they didn't want to touch the thing, so I came up with this idea. I think it works. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh.
This is a lesson in recovery. You know, what is that, making orange juice out of oranges or something like that. At any rate, the story goes, you know, drying these turned wet. This is Osage orange that came from a Lenexa. There were 3 trees that were cut that were about 40 inches in diameter. And so my objective was to make 3 large bowls. Well, 2.5 not bad. And this one was 3 inches taller, had been turned twice, put away to dry, and it decided to split right down through to about there. And I said, okay, if we hurry, we can cut it off and make it. So that's my recovery story here. And working with Osage orange or any of these that are wet, you really have to be patient with drying them. And I use the garden leaf bags, big ones, and put them in there. And sometimes I put a little shavings in there and so forth, and then put them in a furnace room where it's dry, and just forget about them. But weigh them before you do that, so you can get a guess at how much. These had 34% water in them when I got the last turns. And these are all done with tung oil. I just love out tung oil. And it hasn't turned dark, which happens a lot to Osage orange.
All right. Thank you guys for all the show and tell items. The variety is always exciting to see and enjoyable to hear about. So that pretty much wraps us up for tonight. If you've got or need information, I don't know, is Mark Inman gone? But if you need information on the Freedom Pins or a way to help on that, please look up Mark Inman. Kevin, wave your hand again. Kevin Turk. Both Kevins are sitting together. Kevin Turk is looking for a partner to open up an open shop on Sundays. So if anybody's interested in that, I think he's just needing a backup person. But see Kevin. I can't think of anything that we haven't already announced, but please check out the website if you need other information or if you got a question on the timing. Sometimes my notes aren't always exactly correct on dates and stuff, so always double check me. Thank you all for coming and participating and being here to hear everything. I appreciate everybody showing up.